Hello and welcome back. In the last session, we looked at Git flow and GitHub flow. These are your branching strategies that you can follow based on your application and the team requirement. In today's session, we are going to talk about another very commonly used feature of GitHub Webhooks. Up until now, we are focused on using Git locally and with GitHub. So as a developer, we make our changes locally and then we push this change to our GitHub repository over here. But what if you could connect your GitHub repository to other services? What if a merge to your main branch could automatically send a notification to your team's Slack channel or kick off a build on a different service, like trigger a job on Jenkins, which is what we are going to look at. That's the power of webhooks and integrations. So a webhook is a way for an application to provide other applications with real-time information. Like in this case, my GitHub can provide some information to Jenkins as to which job to trigger. So that real-time information. GitHub Webhooks is an automated notification system. So instead of constantly asking, has anything new happened? A webhook lets a service send a notification the moment an event occurs, like when we push some changes or when we create a pull request. So whenever an event occurs. So think of this as an event driven push notification for your code. So what exactly are webhooks? So let's use an analogy. So imagine you're waiting for a package. Now there are two ways that you can get an update about your package. One is by doing a poll, which is your polling. So this is like a regular API call. And the other way is by using your webhooks. So what happens under your polling is that you as a customer, you will, let's say, someone is sending a package. So you will repeatedly call this delivery company to ask like, hey, is my package there yet? So basically, you're continuously calling up the company and trying to get an update. Now, this is very inefficient and requires a lot of wasted effort. So that's where we have the webhooks. So under your webhooks, you will give the delivery company your phone number and they will send you a text message the exact moment the package is delivered. So you don't have to call the company and ask for the updates repeatedly. The company will give you an update the moment that event occurs. So that's basically where we can make use of your webhook. So that's exactly what your webhook does. You tell GitHub, hey, here's the URL, and when this specific event happens, send a little packet of data, the payload, to this particular address. So let's look at how we can set up your webhooks. So for this example here, I have my Jenkins setup. So we will build a simple job over here, and then we will tell GitHub to trigger this job whenever there is a push to our repository. So let's first create a job quickly. So we'll go to create a job and let's call this as a demo job, and I'll go with the freestyle project. Click on OK and we start filling in the details. So let's say this job will be triggered when there is a push to GitHub. I mean, you can fill whatever you want. And source code is going to be our Git. So this is the repo that I'm gonna use. So let me copy the URL. It's gonna be HTTPS, and we'll give that over here. Now, if this is a private repository, then we will need to give the credentials. But I don't have to worry about this for now because this is a public repository. And the branch that I'm looking for is a main branch. I mean, you can choose any branch you want, but for our example, we will go with the main branch. Now, this is the most important part, triggers. So how do you want to trigger this job? So I want this job to be triggered whenever there's an event on GitHub. So this is the option we will go. GitHub hook trigger for Git SCM polling. We will check that. And then your steps. So what exactly do you want this job to do? So I'll just give a sample echo. So this job was triggered by GitHub push event. I mean, you can fill whatever you want, but for our example, this should be enough. And we will save this. All right, so now my job is ready. Now, the second part is setting up the webhook. So we'll go back to the repository, go to settings, and here on the left hand side, look for webhooks. and you start filling in the details. So at this point we don't have any webhook, so click on add webhook and start filling in the details. So what is the payload URL? So this is the URL of the service that will receive the payload, like in this case the Jenkins job. So here we will take the Jenkins URL. So this is the URL where my Jenkins is hosted. So as you can see here, only until the port number, so we will take that, and then we will need to add this additional thing, webhook. So this is something, so this will be the payload URL, so make sure it is the same. So until here, so this will be your Jenkins URL where your Jenkins is hosted, and then GitHub hyphen webhook, that's your constant. Then you have your content type. So the standard is application slash JSON. So this tells GitHub to send the data as a JSON payload, which is a standard format that most services understand. Then you have your secret. Now this is an optional password. So if you set 1, the receiving service can use it to verify that the payload is actually coming from GitHub and not from a malicious source. Then you have your SSLs, which is for making sure the data is encrypted. And then you have your event. So which events would you like this webhook to trigger? So just the push event. So whenever there is a push, or send me everything, basically whenever anything happens, and then let me select individual events. So this is something you can customize based on your requirements. So under this you have pushes, so that by default this is selected. So notifies every time code is pushed to the repository. Then you'll also have pull requests. So notifies every time a pull request is opened, closed, or updated. You also have this issue comments. So notifies every time a comment is added to an issue. So likewise, there are different events that you can choose from. So like when there's a branch or tag creation, or branch or tag deletion, or when there is a commit comments, when there is a fork that happened. So there are lots of options. For our example, we will just go with the push event and click on add webhook. So that's how simple it is. So we just give the URL, the payload URL, we select our events and save it. Now you can verify whether this webhook is working or not by going to this recent deliveries, and here you should be able to see this check mark. This means your webhook is able to talk to the payload URL, which in this case is our Jenkins. So GitHub is able to talk to Jenkins. If you don't see this, then there's an issue and the webhook will not work as expected. So make sure the webhook shows this check mark for the webhook itself to work. Now let's see this in action. So here I'm in my main branch. So let me make the change directly. Before I do that, let me quickly do a pull. So git pull origin main, and this will update my local repository. Now let's go and make some changes here. So this change will trigger the Jenkins job. I'll save this, I will add this, I will commit this. So let's say trigger Jenkins job, and we will push this. So the expectation is here is the push event. So whenever we do this push, my GitHub should automatically trigger my Jenkins job. So let's go and take a look at this. So I'll refresh this, and here you can see my job is triggered. And you can look at the output, and the output will clearly tell you that started by GitHub push and then the user. So basically this tells me that this job was triggered by GitHub on the push event, and then whatever you have defined in the job, that will get executed accordingly. So that's basically where we can make use of your webhooks to integrate GitHub with Jenkins or any other service you can think of, and take some actions whenever an event occurs. So this is just one simple example, but there's a many complex things that you can do. Like let's say you want to send out a Slack notification whenever a push happens or a pull request gets created, you can do it. So webhooks are the foundation for a wide range of powerful integrations and automations, connecting your Git actions to the rest of your development ecosystem. And that brings us to the end of the session. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, Subscribe to the channel for more content and let me know in the comment section if you have any queries. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.